Okay, in the last lecture, we are seeing their isomerism in the coordination compound. Coordination compounds, which shows isomerism. There are a different type of the isomerism which is given there. In the isomerisms, there are two types. One is the stereoisomerism, and another that is the constitutional isomerism, which is given there. Stereoisomerism, which is having further classification, which is given there, that is a geometrical isomerism or diastereomer, and second one that is a enantiomer, which is given there. Enantiomer, which is also having another name, that is optical isomerism. Geometrical isomerism, which is having another name, that is the diastereomers. Geometrical isomerism, which is having two types, which is given there, that is the cis isomerism, and second one that is the trans isomerism. Already we have discussed this point in the last lecture. Cis isomerism, which is having identical ligands, which are the present in the adjacent position, while in case of the trans isomerism, identical ligands which are the present in the opposite position in the given structure. So this is the example of the cis and trans isomerism. There is a cis isomerism, there is a trans isomerism. Also, we are seeing there cis and trans isomerism in the octahedral complex. Cis isomerism, and second one that is the trans isomerism. Cis isomerism, again here similar atoms, these are the present in the one side. In transform, similar atoms, these are present in the opposite side. These are the three different examples which are the given here: cis and trans isomerism. Optical isomerism, this is the next one isomerism which is given there. Optical isomerism, which is also having another name, that is the enantiomer. Optical isomerism, there are two types. One is a D and another which is a L. D means dextrorotatory and L means leo-rotatory, which is given there. Octahedral complex, which is exists both geometrical and optical isomerism. For an example, this example also we are covered in the last lecture. So in this example, this is a D form, this is a cis form which is given there actually. Similar type of the ligands, these are on the same side which are the given there. And in the second one example, this is a mirror plane which is given there. So in the mirror, there is a opposite rotation you can observe in the mirror. Mirror मध्ये काय होत असतं, जी इमेज आहे त्याचे एक्झॅक्टली अपोजिट इमेज दिसत असते. So that means D form which convert into the L form, because in the D form, if light rotate clockwise direction, then in L form light rotate anti-clockwise direction. So this is about the D and L form. So this D and L form, these are the optical isomerism, and also there is a geometrical isomerism which is also possible there. Both are the examples of the cis isomerism, and second one, this one example for the trans isomerism which is given there. Next one type or classification which is given there in case of the isomerism, structural isomers. Structural isomers which are also known as the constitutional isomers. Structural isomers which are also known as the constitutional isomer. Structural isomer, which is a further classification which is given there. That means structural isomer. Structural isomer means काय असणार आहे? This is known as the structural isomer. Structural isomer which is having same chemical formula but which is having different linkage, which is a present there, different linkage which is a given. So this is about the structural isomerism which is given there. Structural isomerism which is having further classification. याचं classification केले बघा इथे. Linkage isomer, ionization isomer, coordination isomer, and solvent isomer. Linkage isomer, which is in which this is the example which is given there. Now what is the difference in between these two examples? हे दोन्ही example बघा. ह्या दोन्ही example मध्ये काय difference आहे याच्यामध्ये? So these are the two examples which are given there. Now compare both of these examples and tell me what is the difference in between these two examples. So in this example, you can observe there cobalt, second structure there is a cobalt, CO means cobalt. There is ammonia, there are 5 ammonia, there are also 5 ammonia. There is a NO2 in the first structure, but in the second structure there is also NO2. Now what is the difference? In first structure, cobalt which is attached to the nitrogen, while in the second one example cobalt which attached to the oxygen through the nitro group. So this is a difference in between these two examples. याच्या दोन्ही मध्ये काय आहे तिथे, this is a difference which is a given there. So in this example, first example मध्ये काय आहे, cobalt which attached to the nitrogen, and second one example cobalt which attached to the oxygen which is a given there. So this is a linkage isomer example. कशाचं example आहे ते, linkage isomer. Next one, ionization isomer. Ionization isomer in which there is a difference in between ions. There is a difference in the ions. That means there is exchange of the ions in between coordination sphere and outer sphere. So in this example, first one example, all students observe this example. Cobalt, there are 5 ammonia and there is 1 sulfate. आणि याच्या बाहेरच्या साईडला काय इथे Br, that means bromine. In the second one example, there is a cobalt which is having 5 ammonia, 1 bromine, and outside of the square bracket that is a sulfate. Okay. So याच्यामध्ये काय डिफरन्स आहे दोन्ही एक्झाम्पल मध्ये, there is only one difference is that sulfate which is inside of the square bracket in the first one example, sulfate काय याच्यामध्ये inside of the square bracket, and in the second one example sulfate which is outside of the square bracket, and inside of the square bracket there is a bromine. But in the first one example, bromine which is outside of the square bracket. Bromine कसा आहे ते outside आहे, याच्यामध्ये bromine कसा आहे inside of the square bracket आहे. So that means there is a difference only in between ions. कशामध्ये difference आहे ते ions. Sulfate ion, bromine ion. There is a bromine ion, sulfate ion. That means there is a difference only in between this structure, that is a ions. There is exchange of the ligands in between coordination and ionization sphere. इथे दिलंय बघा. There is exchange of the ligands in between coordination sphere and ionization sphere, which is known as the ionization isomerism. So this is about the example which is given there, ions formation which is given there. Next one, coordination isomerism. Now what is the coordination isomerism? In coordination isomerism, there is a just only difference in between coordination sphere. So this is the first one example which is given there. This is a cationic coordination sphere, and second that is the anionic coordination sphere. First cationic coordination sphere, second that is the anionic coordination sphere. Second one example, this is the cationic coordination sphere, and this is the second which is the anionic coordination sphere. That means in these two structure you can observe there. Cationic coordination sphere, याच्यामध्ये बघा इथे ammonia which is bonded to the CO. याच्यामध्ये ammonia कशाला bonded आहे CO ला. याच्यामध्ये बघा ammonia which is bonded to the chromium. That means there is an exchange of the ligands in between coordination sphere. आता याच्यामध्ये ammonia cobalt ला attach आहे. हे एक्झाम्पल मध्ये ammonia which attached to the chromium. याच्यामध्ये बघा chromium which attached to the cyanide, 6 cyanide. But in the second structure cobalt which attached to the cyanide. That means याच्यामध्ये काय डिफरन्स आहे, तुम्ही जर स्ट्रक्चर इथं व्यवस्थित पाहिलं तर इथे लक्षात येईल, देयर इज अ इंटरचेंज ऑफ द लिगँड्स इन बिटवीन कॅटायनिक स्पेअर अँड ॲनायनिक स्पेअर. ओके, डिफरंट मेटल जे आहेत याच्यामध्ये काय असणार आहेत कॅटायन ॲनायन एक्सचेंज. सो दिस इज नोन ॲज द कोऑर्डिनेशन स्पेअर आयसोमर. कोऑर्डिनेशन स्पेअर आयसोमर मीन्स काय एक्झॅक्टली बघा, इथे लिगँड जे आहेत हे कॅटायनिक स्पेअर मध्ये आणि ॲनायनिक स्पेअर मध्ये एक्सचेंज होतात. इथे बघा इथं कोबाल्ट अटॅच अमोनिया आहे आणि सेकंड मध्ये काय chromium attached ammonia. That means there is an exchange of the there is exchange of the ligands in between cationic sphere and anionic sphere. Next one, solvent isomerism. Solvent isomerism which is also having another name, that is a hydrate isomer, and this hydrate isomer which is also having another name, that is a solvent isomer. Hydrate isomer याच्यामध्येच meaning लक्षात आलं असेल. Hydrate isomer in which there is an exchange of the water in between coordination sphere and ionization sphere. So there is an exchange which is given there. So in this example, chromium which is having 5 water molecules which are surrounded there, and there are 3 chlorine which are the outside of the square bracket. In second one example, chromium which is having 5 water molecule, 1 chlorine, and there is an exchange of the water with the outer sphere. याच्यामध्ये बघा इथे 6 वॉटर आहे. सेकंड एक्झाम्पल मध्ये किती आहे 5 वॉटर आहेत. एक वॉटर काय झाला इथे आउटसाइड ऑफ द स्क्वेअर ब्रॅकेट गेला. दॅट मीन्स याच्यामध्ये दोन्हीमध्ये काय फरक आहे, देयर इज एक्सचेंज ऑफ द वॉटर, कोऑर्डिनेशन स्पेअर अँड आयोनेशन स्पेअर. ओके, आता याच्यामध्ये वॉटर 6 आहे आणि याच्यामध्ये काय 5 आहे, म्हणजे एक वॉटर कशा झाला, आउटसाइड झाला. दॅट मीन्स काय झाला आहे, इज अ सॉल्वेट आयसोमर. Solvent isomer which is also known as the hydrate isomer. Hydrate isomer means, hydrate means water. So वॉटरचं इथे काय झालं, इथे फक्त डिफरन्स आहे. फर्स्ट एक्झाम्पल मध्ये वॉटर इनसाइड ऑफ द स्क्वेअर ब्रॅकेट. सेकंड एक्झाम्पल देर इज अ वन वॉटर आउटसाइड ऑफ द स्क्वेअर ब्रॅकेट. So this is example of the solvent isomer. I am writing here what is the, there are some examples which are given there. First one example, identify which type of the isomerism which is given there. This is the first example. In the first one example, chromium which attached to the cyanide CN5 and yes CN -2, and another example, chromium which attached to the 5 cyanide and CnS square bracket complete -2. Now all students identify which type of the structural isomerism. All students, this is the linkage isomer. Why this is the linkage isomer? In between these two examples, you can observe there is a chromine. Okay, what is the difference in between this structure? So in the first one structure, there is a chromium which is present there. There is also chromium. There are 5 cyanide. There are 5 cyanide. Okay. There is a one HCN, but only difference is that if you observe this sulfur which bonded through the bonding with the chromium, and in this structure sulfur through bonding with the chromium. That means this is the difference only in between linkage. This is the difference only in between linkage. Otherwise there is a, both of these structure, these are the similar structure. Both are the structure, these are the similar structure which are the given there. दोन्ही पण कशा स्ट्रक्चर आहेत ते सिमिलर आहेत. याच्यामध्ये सल्फर थ्रू क्रोमियमला बॉन्डिंग आहे आणि याच्यामध्ये काय सायनाइड थ्रू काय असणार, क्रोमियमशी बॉन्डिंग असणार. सो दीज आर द एक्झाम्पल्स ऑफ द linkage isomer. Next one example. Now this is the next one example which is given there. Nickel which is surrounded by the 4 water molecule and 1 chlorine. Second one example, nickel which is surrounded by the 3 water and 1 chlorine, but outside of the square bracket. That means in ionization sphere there is a 1 water molecule. Now identify which type of the isomerism which is given there. Okay. This is the example of the solvent isomer. Why solvent isomer? Because if we compare both of these examples, in both of these examples you can observe there there are 4 water molecules which are the present in the square bracket of the first one example, while in case of the second one example, one water molecule which is outside of the square bracket. So that means this is the 100% example of the ionization, sorry, this is the example of the solvent isomer. Solvent isomer which is also having another name, that is the hydrate isomer. Okay, next one example. Now this is the next one example which is given there. So in between these two example, obviously these are the structural isomer. Now identify which type of the structural isomerism which is present in these two examples. Observe both of the structure carefully and tell me which is the structural isomer, which type of the structural isomerism which is possible in these two examples. Yes.